Hi everyone, I'm super glad to be here for two reasons. One, I'm from Huddersfield, so it's close to home. And two, because I love radio, but not a lot of marketers do, as my cartoon shows up here. So I worked for like 7 years at Innocent, Brown-Forman, Bacardi, at Diageo, and for the past 3 years I've worked at System1, the marketing effectiveness platform, and working with loads of global senior marketers, and not many people want to talk to me about radio, which is such a fucking shame. I love radio. Because it's broad reach, it's affordable, it's trust building. It allows you to be creative and tell narratives and build emotions, so it's a real good dual action medium for driving the long and the short. But don't just take my word for it. Mark Ritson showed with ACA data in Australia last year that if you include just 11% of your media plan, your spend towards radio, you actually double the effectiveness outcomes, which is really interesting, right? Clearly drives reach and all that good effectiveness stuff. And then, as we've just heard, 2 years ago, I released research with Radio Center using their amazing radio gauge data, showing that creativity is what drives outcomes in radio as well. So we saw that radio campaigns that left people feeling more positive and not more neutral or negative actually drove huge consumer action, whereas those that were more negative and more neutral, leaving people feeling that drove little action. So we know that creativity is how you drive those effects, and we know that radio gives you an effectiveness advantage. So today, I'm here to share with you my new research on consistency, how that drives creative quality, brand effects, and business effects, and how consistency can help marketers take advantage of that double radio effectiveness advantage. But before I get into some really cool charts and all that, how about we watch an ad?
Good morning, Yorkshire Tea. Oh, he was meeting the farmers in Kenya. Let me just check if he's back. Just popping you on hold. Thanks for holding. Putting you through.
Yorkshire Tea, where everything's done proper.
Good morning, Yorkshire Tea.
So I've not just chosen that for today. I present this a lot. I genuinely present this around the world. Americans don't understand that ad. It's a brilliant ad. It's from 2017. How about we watch one more ad from many years later?
Morning, all.
Morning.
Brothers, sisters, today a great legacy rests upon your shoulders. Because here, we make more than just tea. We make proper brews. Brews that bring a tear to your eye and warmth to your soul. So go out there and do it for each other. Do it for yourselves, but most of all, do it for Yorkshire! Oh, and the fire drill's Thursday at 3.
Yorkshire Tea, where everything's done proper.
They've also literally released one like a month ago with the that woman who always plays a copper. I've forgotten who she's called. Yes, there we go. It's an enduring creative idea, what we used to call a campaign, but the word campaign has somewhat lost its meaning. In 2017, Yorkshire Tea launched Where Everything's Done Proper to incredible sales results. 7 years later at the brand, not much has changed, apart from 15 percentage points in market share. And that's what this research is all about, and my advice today, how consistency compounds creativity. And why is this research important? Because what we've heard today is that the digital platforms are proliferating and they're demanding more and more assets designed specifically for their platform. And the cost of agency pitches is booming. And yet still, the first thing marketers want to do when they join a new job is look at what they can change. So we've worked with the IPA at System1 to really understand the power of consistency for the first time. We've built from research from Les Binet and Peter Field, the long and short of it. We've also looked at research from Jenny Ruminak, distinctive brand assets, if anyone's read into that. Orlando Wood, System1's Chief Innovation Officer, has coined the term fluent devices. We've looked into this as well. And we've drawn from research that shows that creative wear out necessarily isn't really a thing, all to build this first holistic point of view on creative consistency. And we've shown in this research, for the very first time, that consistent brands produce ads that work twice as hard. that consistent brands create campaigns that drive 27% more very large brand effects. They even report double the profit gain. And we've shown that the 56 brands just in this research, over the next 5 years alone, inconsistency is going to cost them £3.5 billion in wasted media spend. So how have we got here? It was a very long research. So we had to get a lot of data from various places. We blind coded 56 brands across 5 years for 13 different creative consistency features, which I'll walk you through today. And then we looked at the ad quality for those brands in System1's ad testing to understand how consistency impacts creative quality. We then matched those to the YouGov data bank at the end of this 5-year period that we analysed to look at how consistency impacts brand growth as well. And then we matched these brands to the IPA data bank to understand how consistency impacts business effects. Now, it's worth understanding these 13 features because it's a playbook for consistency and how it drives effectiveness. And we split them into 3 buckets so you can easily understand them. The first bucket is consistent creative foundations. GWR, Great Western Railway, is a perfect example of this. And they actually just released another ad like a week ago in this campaign as well. The first bucket of consistent creative foundations is sticking to an insight-driven positioning, bringing it to life with a creative idea with legs, with the same creative team over a very long period. GWR realized that planes and cars are quicker than trains, but nothing beats the sense of adventure on a train. It's a very Rory Sutherland insight, if anyone listens to him. They've brought it to life with this brilliant idea around the famous 5 for over many years now, and despite many pitches, they've still kept with their agency team, Adam and Eve. It's a brilliant example of this first bucket of features that drives effectiveness, consistent creative foundations, an insight-driven positioning, a creative idea with legs, and a killer creative team. The second bucket of consistency features that you should focus on, and you don't hear lots of people talk about this actually, is a culture of consistency. Did you know that first ad I played from Yorkshire Tea has been on air for 7 years now? On average, Yorkshire Tea keep their ads on air for 2 years at a time. Drastically different to some brands in this research that only use their ads on TV for 14 days. It's madness. We also looked in this research, in this specific bucket, for evidence of brands putting campaigns across channels, and we'll look at some examples of that today. We also found that an interesting one, commitment to showmanship, really drove results, which is, by what I mean by that is some brands dip into brand building advertising for a year, then they shit the bed and go back into performance for a year, and they yo-yo between it. We looked for evidence of brands being consistently right-brained over the 5-year period. And then a boring one, we also looked for the evidence of people using the same assets across different campaigns. A fun one, I'll go on a tangent here. In 2023, that was the COVID years, and that ad is actually a supercut of all the first 3 ads that GWR put out. It's the kind of boring shit you learn when you research this. Very cool though, hey? And then the third bucket of features is what you might think I'm talking about when I say creative consistency, and that's consistent execution. That's a brand's ability to use the same assets, slogans, soundtracks, celebrities, characters, over this 5-year period consistently. And I think this is a brilliant example of that exact bucket.
Hi, I'm Kevin Bacon. I'm in a recruitment firm in Dagenham, but I'm still center of the universe, connected to everything, everywhere. Check it out. The Office Radio is playing Dr. Alban. Dr. Alban is from Sweden. Sweden is the home of flat-pack furniture. Assembling flat-pack furniture makes you swear, but nothing makes you swear as much as waiting ages for a chunky presentation to download. But fear not. Thanks to super-fast mobile 4G that's only on EE, waiting ages is a thing of the past. Super-fast 4G. British business just got faster. EE, the new network for your digital life.
Subject to coverage, 4G speed depends on location and number of users. Minimum and other terms apply. Compatible device.
Oh, terms and conditions. And then 10 years later, or 12 years later.
Lorraine and Trev finally have a night to themselves. Their daughter Liv is out, but they can't help worrying.
Weird. Liv hasn't texted us yet.
That's Liv asking for more data so she can upload a dance to...
Let me guess. TikTok.
Data sent. Lorraine and Trev kick back to their saucy rom-com.
Now she wants picking up.
Typical. Share data with your kids when they run out. Search EE Mobile.
Excludes no frills plans. Terms apply.
he must be so tired at this point, right? It's been a while. But a brilliant example of consistent execution. So these are the 13 creative consistency features that brands should focus on to maximize their creative quality, their brand outcomes, and their business outcomes. But it's worth giving you a sign of caution here. The brands in this research we had to match with various data banks, including the IPAs, so their creative quality, as measured by System1, is higher than the global average. So I'm not saying make a shit ad and go at it for 5 years and it's all going to be okay. You need to be creative and then be consistent with it, right? And when I say creative quality, this is very exit through the gift shop, but this is what System1 measure. So we show a crowd of people an ad, be it TV, radio, out of home, or digital, and we measure their emotional reaction to advertising and whether they can recall what brand the ad was for, and we build our creative quality metrics. Star rating is a predictor of the long based on the overall emotional reaction to advertising. Spike rating is a predictor of the short, whether it can capture in-market demand, that piece of advertising, based on emotional engagement and how heavily branded it is. And then our fluency rating is ad distinctiveness, whether people can correctly recall what brand an ad was for. Now, our first big finding. The most consistent brands in this research produced much higher average creative quality. And if we use this creative quality to model the expected in-market growth rate, if you're an effectiveness wanker like me, you might call that ESOV efficiency, but I won't call it that. We'd expect that the most consistent brands would grow in market at a 1% higher rate, so 1% higher market share gain annually, if all these brands were spending the same on media. So quite a large difference, a super big finding. Consistent brands produce higher average creative quality. Now, this chart sometimes upsets people or it makes their life. Looking at a specific feature we coded for, and that's the number of times you change agency. We found that brands that changed agencies least produce higher than average creative quality. Now, you might think that a good agency will make a good ad that gets results, so you change less, and that might be why you explain this chart, which is why I like the second chart from System1, because we looked at the average change in ad distinctiveness annually over that 5-year period, looking at whether consumers can recall whether your advertising triggered brand, again, over the 5-year period. And we saw that brands that changed their agencies most, the actual ad distinctiveness was going down every year. And this points to why relationships in marketing is important. If you keep longer relationships, you build skill, knowledge, and you can execute long-term plans. So super key finding. Secondly, we looked at a specific feature, and that's creative wear out, whether a brand was able to keep their ads on air for longer. And we found that brands that keep their ads on air for longer, average ad life, they produce higher than average creative quality, higher star ratings. Now, it's no wonder, right, that this this brand in the top right that wants to keep their ads on air for 2 years at a time, they might try a little harder with creative quality than the brands in the bottom left that are only going to use them for 14 days at a time. This brand in the top right is actually Yorkshire Tea again, but I removed the logo because this was turning into a Yorkshire Tea pitch at this point. Which brings me to my favorite radio ad and the highest scoring we've actually found in the UK to date. Very, very old, but we tested it a few months ago, and it's super high scoring still, proving the point that you don't need wear out.
Penguin. When you're feeling peckish, pick up a Penguin. Delicious, crunchy biscuit, chocolatey through and through, and, wait for it, a free joke. McVitie's Penguin, the chocolatey chuckle of McVitie's. Sweet.
Super old, super effective still. Ads don't wear out. Only marketers get bored of good advertising. So, our final finding from System1 on creative quality is that we looked at the change in ad quality year on year in this 5-year period, and we found that the least consistent brands, their ad quality remains incredibly stable. It doesn't change much over this 5-year period. As opposed to the somewhat consistent brands, their ad quality sees incremental lifts over the 5-year period. But and you might see this going, the most consistent brands, their ad quality increases by nearly a 1/4 star rating year on year, which is why we call this research compound creativity. Because the gap between you and your inconsistent competitor gets bigger and bigger every year. And again, if we model the ESOV efficiency, the expected in-market growth rate, we'd expect after 5 years that the most consistent brands, they're advertising to work media spend twice as hard compared to the least consistent brands. So this really speaks to when radio gives you that reach advantage, then consistency helps you make the most of it. So it's worth thinking about why we're seeing this. Why is consistency working? First of all, we have processing fluency. If you repeat the same messages, campaigns, characters at consumers, you actually lower their cognitive...
The McDonald's breakfast deal.
Yeah, sorry about that. Always happens. You lower their processing ease. Consumers start to understand your advertising easier. It's why you'll lead with a 60-second TV spot, then follow up to build reach and frequency of 30-second, because consumers can comprehend the ad in a shorter time. It also means that you can start putting your campaign into the lower attention, maybe digital media channels and make the most of that. But why would you want to do that? Also, familiarity bias. Familiarity breeds contentment. If you repeat the same characters, slogans, celebrities, taglines, human beings like the familiar, and ad liking is a key driver of effectiveness. We also have, from the world of Ehrenberg Bass, memory encoding. It's much easier to refresh memory structures than to build new ones. So by refreshing and repeating the same memory structures, you earn your category entry points, you start to become more distinctive and more salient. And finally, if procurement's got lost and wandered in the room, resource focus. So if you're not building that 50-page positioning deck or hiring and firing an agency every year, what you might be thinking about is working media spend or even effectiveness. Now, I'm hoping the McDonald's ad plays at this point.
The McDonald's breakfast.
McDonald's breakfast deal. Succulent sausage, an egg McMuffin, and a white coffee, all for just $2.79. Something that will make anyone a morning person. So morningy that even the birds are more morningy. McDonald's. Until 11 a.m. Not available on delivery. Exclusions apply. Price of participation may vary.
Goddamn terms and conditions. Brilliant, right? What that also shows, if we go back, what that also shows is that when you build those memory structures, you actually give yourself a license to play with it as well, like McDonald's have done there. I said we match these consistent brands to the YouGov databank to understand brand strength, and we can see that the most consistent brands are more popular and famous. But what came first? Was it chicken or the egg? Are big brands consistent, or do consistent brands get big? Which is why the IPA effectiveness databank is total gold. We match these brands to the latest campaigns in the IPA databank at the end of the 5-year period, and we can see that campaigns for the most consistent brands report more brand effects. Now, what's a brand effect, I hear you ask? Well, it's awareness, it's differentiation, it's salience, it's changing attitudes, it's everything you want your brand to do. Now, interestingly, consistency didn't help with trust building, which takes me on my first little side quest for today, because you know how you build trust? It's with radio, isn't it? So there's some great research from Peter Field of the IPA databank that shows that campaigns that included radio in them grow more brand trust. And then the research I did 2 years ago with Radio Centre, Listen Up, looking at creativity's power to build radio effects, we saw that if you increase your fluency, so brands that were able to be more distinct in advertising, build more brand recall in advertising, they actually doubled this effect further. The higher fluency ads actually reported double the trust gains. So although consistency might not help you build trust, radio does. And I don't work for a radio station, so you should believe me. Moving back to consistency, the multiplicative power of channels means you have to be consistent. I rarely present click-through data because it's shit, but this proves a point. Gobuni did a great Meta study where they did a national campaign on Meta and then geolocated some out-of-home and radio in the cities and looked at how click-through changed. They saw that click-through dramatically increased when they layered out of home, and radio on top. That means you have to be consistent creatively to take advantage of this. I thought it was a key point to share. And talking of being consistent across the channels, I'm now going to play one of my favorite ads at the moment. It's a radio ad, but if you can remember seeing it in digital or TV at any point, just raise your hand.
Hello, Albert Einstein here. Today I've been visiting the local high street. More and more businesses are using smart meters to help them feel more in control of their budgeting. The smart meter sends gas and electricity readings straight to the supplier. So rather than estimates, you receive accurate energy bills. And that means you know exactly how much you're spending each month. Now that's smart.
Get a smart meter for your business by searching Get a Smart Meter today. Eligibility may vary.
Brilliant. So building memory structures across channels. But my favorite example is this.
Got the ticket, Sergey? Yep. Now, what movie are we watch? Ooh, an adventure. Oh, where are we? Ooh, it's a tomb. Okay, stay close to me, and whatever you do, don't set off any... Oh, booby traps. Switch your car or home insurance to compare the market today and get 2-for-1 cinema tickets. With a qualifying product, 1 membership a year, participating cinemas, Tuesday and Wednesday, 2 standard tickets only, cheapest free, T's and C's apply.
I wrote a very ranty article the other day about whether insights demand, well, effective advertising demands insights. The insight on Compare the Market was a drunk intern that was doing an impression of a Russian guy saying, compare the market, and it sounded like Meerkat. You know, you don't need insights to drive advertising. Anyway, so powerful thing we saw in this research with brand characters, what you could call fluent devices if you're an effectiveness wanker like me, is that they don't give you a guaranteed effectiveness advantage. We saw in compound creativity that it was only in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th year where the payback for using fluent devices starts exponentially lifting. So it's crucial that if you have these things, you invest in them and then wait to see their return. And I said that we were looking at business effects as well, the holy grail. We found a very similar pattern with business effects with the IPA, but the pattern isn't perfect. So it's worth looking at what consistency does do for business and what it doesn't do for business. We found that campaigns from consistent brands report more value gain, more share gain, and double the profit gain. And this is where it really gets my ticker going. So if we saw double the creative quality at the start of the research and then double the profit at the end of the research, that's nice shit all lining up, right? Very cool. Fun fact, actually a quick pop quiz. If we're seeing value, market share, and volume gain shifting, but not, if we're seeing value, share, and profit shifting, but not volume, what is a brand managing to do? So what was that? Yeah, there you go. Lower price elasticity. Brilliant. Can't actually see you, but very smart person who said that. Yes, if you read the long and short of it, the short of it is moving volume, sales. The long of it is actually increasing price or lowering price sensitivity. And Lesbonnet and Peter Field show that that's a toxic mix when you do it together. Hiring price and increasing volume. So a key way to drive your price is actually being consistent. And it makes sense, right? Because we saw earlier that consistency drives differentiation. The way you can charge more is be more differentiated. All cool stuff, hey? What doesn't consistency do for business though? Consistency doesn't help you turn around your failing brand. IPA tracks something where they actually see whether a brand can turn around consistent decline. And we found that consistency doesn't help you turn that round. It's obvious, right? Things are failing, holding on the wheel and praying with your 1-star ad isn't going to help you. But Einstein said it best, right? It's not about just being consistent in the face of everything. It's about getting your insight-driven positioning right, finding that right creative idea with a killer creative team, and then letting consistency compound. Now, my boss released some research recently, John Evans, called The Cost of Dull, and I was very jealous. I wanted to call this research The Cost of Change, but he wouldn't let me. So this is a chart towards it anyway. I looked at the cost of inconsistency to brands, and we looked at the ESOV efficiency, the expected in-market growth rate of these brands split into thirds from their consistency. And we can see that the least consistent brands would have to spend 1.75 times more on media due to their lower creative quality to grow at the same rate as the most consistent brands. Now that means just the 56 brands in this research over 1 year alone would have to spend nearly £500 million more on media to all grow at the same rate. Now because we know this effect compounds and consistent brands, their advertising quality increases, whereas their inconsistent brands, it remains the same. Over the next 5 years, just the brands in this research would have to spend £3.5 billion more on media spend to all grow at the same rate. A huge cost of change. Now I'll leave you with this. Inconsistent brands will see brand and business effects. But when you change, you start again every year. It's the brands that see the effects and lean on consistency that compounds them, and that means you can make the most of your creativity, the most of your effectiveness, and the most out of your radio advantage. Thank you very much.